What's up, guys? Doug Polk here, and thank you for joining us for another episode of Poker Hands. And today we're going to be taking a look at a high-stakes poker classic hand. It was the biggest hand ever played on high-stakes poker at the time of it. On that note, let's jump into the action.
Bluffing or not bluffing.
And Doyle had the better flush, but he threw his hand away. It would have probably meant going all in for $500,000.
Maybe the jack, but
Yeah, he called. I called. I just called.
That steamed me up, boys.
Ace 10 of diamonds for Doyle here. He's going to raise to 11,200.
Hearing that story about how he threw away the best
That's
hand
how far off I am. I didn't think it was even a possibility he had a flush.
made Doyle put in $10,000 raise. Will Jamie call when it gets back to him with a Jack-7 offsuit? What do you think?
The guy's got a foot out the door, and I got to say, yeah.
Can't miss that family.
Yeah, I can't miss this. This might be my last hand.
There we go.
I'm surprised.
60,000 in the pot.
But again, you're better at
Yeah,
making these calls than I am.
poker community is well aware of that.
Our hand begins with the action folding to Laliberte under the gun +1 with ace-5 suited, and he decides to come in for a limp, which he shouldn't do, as you guys know, because we don't limp any of our hands coming into the pot. We get in there for a raise. Next up is Jamie Gold, who decides he hates money and limps in with Jack-7 off behind, and the action is on Doyle Brunson. With ace-10 suited, he has a clear bump-it-up type hand, although he does make this a little excessively big. I'd like to see a raise a little more towards $7,000 or $8,000. $11,000, while it might thin the field out, and again, maybe in these games, this is a good size because people don't care at all about $10,000 or $11,000, and they'll just call anyway. But in general, you want to use a little bit smaller size so that if you had a hand like 9-8 suited, you get a better price on your bluff. The action then folds to Sammy Farha in the big blind with King Jack. He decides King Jack off's good enough for, around 9 big blinds, which not really sure that hand should be in there. I think we have a pretty clear fold or 3-bet situation pre-flop, but he decides to call. Now over to the big blind, and Benjamin makes a very loose call here with King 5 suited. This is a clear fold, and I don't think it's very close. Now over to Laliberte, and he actually has a kind of interesting spot here. I at least want to talk about this for a second. He could go ahead and limp re-raise. Ace-5 suited performs well against strong hands. He does have an ace, so it's less likely his opponent has good hands. If you're going to limp in with some hands, you should mix it up and throw some limp re-raises in. I wouldn't mind seeing that here, especially with all of this dead money behind. Now to Jamie Gold, and he decides to call again with Jack-7 off. There's some questionable play pre-flop kind of across the board here, but this is by far the worst decision of the hand. He has a terrible hand in a multi-way pot, bad relative position, and yeah, sure, I guess he has second to last absolute position, but all in all, this is totally terrible. He should fold his hand. All right, let's take a flop.
Let me go broke on the last hand.
Ace Jack 4 on the flop.
Well, he has flopped a pair of jacks, but he's surrounded by aces. Aces to the right of him, aces to the left of him, and a better jack in the middle. And Dole's playing his hand real fast.
He bets 40,000 here.
And Sammy did the Lebanese chip dance and then threw his hand away. Now, Guy's got aces. But Guy's got to be aware that Doyle has not raised too much before the flop, but doesn't matter. Guy's called with his ace-5.
The flop comes ace-jack-4 rainbow, and what's interesting about this flop is with 5 players involved, with the exception of David Benjamin, 4 players have middle pair or better. So everyone has a piece, and this could definitely be a situation where having the best hand, in this case Doyle Brunson, can really pay off for you. The action checks to Doyle, and he decides to bet about 40,000 to 60,000. I overall like this play. I'd maybe like to see a hand size a little more like 30,000. I think maybe you can make an argument to check it back on the flop because you're 5 ways. But you know what? Given the action, given the limps, I like it. I think this is a good spot to value bet. I just might pick a slightly smaller size. Remember, there's no draws going on here, so he doesn't have to be as scared other than the gut shots. Anyway, the action's now on Sammy Farha with King Jack, and this is one of the reasons why you don't want to be calling this hand pre-flop. Now, you're in kind of a tough situation. You know, you have King Jack, but if Doyle has an ace, you're crushed. In fact, you could be drawing almost dead, as we learned, not fully dead, almost dead from our last episode of Poker Hands. But at the end of the day, if he has you beat, you're in very bad shape, and there are still 3 players left to act. So even if Doyle's bluffing, someone else could have an ace behind you. You're kind of screwed. So he decides to fold. I like the fold, but I think this kind of highlights why this hand should be a fold pre-flop. Benjamin has an easy fold, and now it's back over to Guy. With top pair, I think Guy absolutely has to call. Raising doesn't accomplish much. He should be hoping that Doyle is bluffing and look to play some turns. So he decides to flat. Jamie Gold makes a good fold here with a bad middle pair, and we're on to the turn.
He needs a 5 to take the lead here.
2 of diamonds on the turn.
2 of diamonds is a dangerous card. It gives Guy an inside straight draw, but it gives Doyle the nut flush draw.
Guy checks, and Doyle bets 110,000 here.
That's a pretty strong bet.
Yeah.
I think Guy might have called something like 60, 70,000, 110. Don't think he's going to call.
Hi, raise. 10 minutes ago.
He just said raise. Just when I said he wasn't going to call, he said raise.
But you were right.
I was right. He wasn't going to
He
call.
wasn't going to call at all.
200,000. 200 more.
Guy is trying to make Doyle throw away
Here this long.
ace, queen, ace, king. And Doyle doesn't look like he's in any mood to throw it away.
No.
The turn comes the deuce of diamonds, giving Doyle the nut flush draw and Guy a gut shot straight draw. Guy checks over to Doyle, and now Doyle definitely has to think his hand is good. His opponent would probably have raised pre-flop or raised on the flop if he was behind, and now his hand's actually gotten even more strong that he has the nut flush draw. So he decides to bet 110,000 to 140,000, and I like this decision overall. I will say you want to tread lightly in multi-way pots because it's more likely someone has you beat, but in this exact situation, I don't totally mind it. Now over to Guy, and he has a tough spot here with top pair, and frankly, I think all 3 of his options are fine. At this point, it's kind of unlikely that Doyle is bluffing, but he still could have a hand like a flush draw or queen 10, or maybe king queen, and he just thinks his opponent has a weak ace or jack. So bluffing is not totally unreasonable. However, it's much more likely he has a hand like a set or top pair or ace jack. So he's in a tough situation. If he's behind, he really is in a bad spot and needs either a 5 or a 3 on the river to improve. Or if he's ahead, he might face another barrel. So letting your hand go here on the turn does make some sense because you aren't quite getting the odds to draw. Now, if you do decide to call, you're going to have to look to call down some rivers as well, and that does sound very unattractive. But you can't call the turn here just planning on calling down when you hit a 5 or a 3 or an ace. That's simply not enough cards in the deck. However, he does decide to come in for a raise and put Doyle to the test for an all-in. And you know what? I actually don't mind this play. He could absolutely have a hand like ace-deuce and a turn 2 pair, or maybe even a trapped hand like ace-jack or 4s on the flop and had gone for the trap. So he does actually represent some credible hands, and the thing about ace-5 is it makes it less likely his opponent has a hand like ace-jack or ace-ace, or maybe a very unlikely 5-3 suited. So he has some equity and does block some hands. I'm actually okay with this play. I mean, yeah, it's aggressive, and he probably shouldn't have gotten here with any hands. But if you are going to get into these big post-flop spots, you have to occasionally mix up and throw in some raises, and this is maybe the most reasonable one that he could use. He has a weak top pair and a gut shot straight draw. Back over to Doyle, and he has a tough situation. The thing is, when you have the nut flush draw and you decide to bet the turn, you kind of have to just call it off because you only need something around 30% equity. And yes, when your opponent has a hand like ace-4 or ace-deuce, you're in not good shape, but you can still improve on a 10 or a diamond, so you're getting almost direct odds against those value bets. Additionally, if your opponent ever has the moxie to come in for a bluff with a hand like ace-5 or 5-5, or maybe even a hand like the nut flush draw with king-queen of diamonds, something along those lines, then you are crushing those hands and you absolutely have to call. So given the pot odds, given the chance of a bluff, I think you need to call. I don't think, though, that Doyle really thought that he was going to be good here a lot when he called, unless he just had a really strong read on the way that Guy was playing. And Doyle certainly is the old school kind of player like that, so maybe he just thought he was good. But when you get good odds with top pair and the nut flush draw, you're going to kind of have to call even against strong ranges that your opponent is representing.
30,500 more.
Let's have to go, eh?
Doyle's going all in for 30,500 more.
Man.
He called it. He already
30,000.
said call.
Wow.
30.
Man, and we're now looking at the biggest pot in the history of high-stakes poker.
And the whole table is going to be shocked when they see the hands that these two guys have.
What do we got?
Ace 10 and a flush.
Oh, with the diamonds. He's got outs.
You want to show your hand? You want to see mine? Okay, do
You
whatever
can,
you
hold
want.
on. You can deal once or twice. That's why he's asking.
No, he
to
doesn't
wait
run
out.
it. He doesn't run it twice.
Have ace 5.
Oh, whoa.
Here at Poker Hands Productions, we actually have the technology where we can take a language and deduce what it is in English. We're going to run it back on that Jamie Gold comment.
He doesn't run it twice.
Have ace 5.
Oh, whoa.
You did it once or twice, it didn't matter. You say,
Huh?
you say.
You can run it more than once. So you're allowed to
Oh, you just
decide.
like to run it once.
It's up to you.
No, it's up to you. Believe me, I'm not going to decide that.
You have the advantage there.
The biggest hand in the history of high-stakes poker. Most money in the center of the table
Twice.
on two very mediocre hands.
And they're going to run it twice
What a
here.
call, Doyle.
Buddy, I've sat here all day and hadn't made a pair.
3 or 5.
Any catch?
You got to hand it to Doyle making that call.
Diamonds would be nice.
He did have the nut flush draw, but it was a hell of a call. And it was a hell of a play by Guy.
Yeah.
4 also.
4, you'd split it.
There's a queen.
1.
One more.
One for Doyle. Guy needs a 3 or 5 that's not a diamond.
Give us a face card.
Well, a 3 will be perfect. Oh,
10 will do it.
Man, I won one.
Nice hand.
Nice hand, Doyle.
I said,
patient, Doyle.
when you don't make a pair for 8 hours, you go crazy.
didn't look like the best hand when he raised you.
I couldn't.
And somewhere in the world, a performance of Cirque du Soleil will be for Doyle's benefit tonight.
He thought he was beat,
That's,
but
no, he has diamond. No.
The diamond will kill me.
This diamond. If you
No.
don't have diamond,
Yeah,
you're late.
I know.
Jamie cost you that pop by telling me about that 9-7 of spades.
Thank you for joining me here today for Poker Hands, and as always, I'd like to ask for you to subscribe to the channel so you do not miss any of my videos.